Welcome to this edition of the Rainer Report. Every week we provide this video instruction to you as just a part of the ministry that we want to have for churches, church leaders, church members. And it's really one of the things I enjoy doing. I wish you could see the other side of the camera. I mean, you got Amy J over here, you got Jonathan here. There's so much work that goes into it, so much back-end work, so much production work, so much editing work. I just get to stand in front of a camera and talk to you. And sometimes I wonder, who's on the other side of that camera? Who's viewing this on this particular day? Is it a staff coming together? Is it an elder group? Or is it deacons? Or is it maybe a community group or a Sunday school class? Whomever you are, thank you for being a part of the Rainer Report. It is my goal, and I challenge myself each and every week to provide information that is really helpful and even cutting edge to you in your local congregation. Today I'm going to talk about something that I absolutely love, and my challenge is going to be that you don't get bored to death, because I'm going to be talking about numbers. No, not the book of Numbers. Really, I'm talking about statistics or metrics. I can anticipate by just saying those words that there is a collective yawn on the other side of the camera. I'm going to try to go through this quickly, but if you would, give me your attention on this so that we can focus together on some things that I think could be very helpful to your church. So what are these metrics? What are the metrics that we often ignore that I think could be very helpful in your church? Well, first of all, let's just talk about what we do see on a regular basis. We see attendance. Almost all churches, almost all, count worship attendance every week, okay? So we're counting posteriors in the pews, our souls in the seats. So we're getting that type of number coming on a regular basis. We usually get weekly giving, and many times we'll actually publish how it's doing relative to budget. There's nothing wrong with those numbers. Those are two of the most common metrics. But I would suggest to you that there are at least 6 other metrics that could be very helpful to you. You may or may not publish them. In other words, put them out on your website or some type of newsletter, whether it's digital or analog. But I'm going to suggest to you that there are some other metrics that I think could be very helpful. Let's go through some of those. Number 1 is conversion trends. Now, what do I mean by conversion? Conversion is someone who has come to your church and has been exposed to the gospel, relationships within your church, and he or she has decided to follow Christ. They were previously not Christians, and they are Christians now. Some churches have metrics for these. For example, baptisms or professions of faith or conversions. Some churches have these type of numbers, but I would suggest to you that most churches, even those who have those numbers, are not monitoring them very carefully. If they were, our churches would not be in the anemic conversionary evangelistic state that they are currently in today. So even if you're keeping these numbers, watch them a little more closely. Now, let's just look at one of these as an example. I've given you 3 ways that different churches of non-denominational and denominational background measure these. One of them, they call them conversions. Another one, professions of faith. Those are 2 with which I have familiarity. And then the one with which I have the most familiarity is baptisms. Since I come from a Baptist background, obviously immersion baptism is what I'm talking about. But let me share with you how you have to even analyze those numbers. And again, I realize that I'm beginning to exclude some of the audience when I talk about this particular measurement, but just focus with me for a moment because it has application in the other ways that we look at conversion growth. Okay, let's say that you're in church averaging 100 in attendance, and relative to other churches, you had a pretty good year and you had 10 baptisms. Okay, that's going to be our metric for conversion. Here's what I would suggest that you do. You begin to go and analyze those baptisms. Okay, some of them were children of members. That's good. Children need Christ just like adults do. So we'll put that in one category. 1 or 2 of them were people who were totally unchurched. That's good. But here's what you find out about the other 5. They were Methodists or Presbyterians that were already Christians, but they had not been immersed. And so that's not really conversion growth. Again, I'm not going to get into too much doctrinal polity issues here, but those people were Christian. They just had not entered the church through immersion baptism. So I would suggest that even if you are watching these numbers, you begin to look at the composition of them. I could say the same thing for you faith systems and denominations that measure professions of faith and conversions. Analyze them. Look, what are we about? We are about the Great Commission. Are we truly making disciples? Are we truly baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit? Are we really about conversions? I could park there, but I'm over halfway done with my time. I got to move on. Ministry involvement trends. What do I mean by ministry involvement trends? When Eric Geiger and I wrote Simple Church, one of the things that we advocated, among others, was asking this question: how many of your adults and students, or maybe just adults, are actually involved doing some kind of ministry in the church in the course of a year? Maybe it's a single mission trip, maybe it's working in the preschool or nursery or children's area. How many are involved? I'm not going to say what is a good number, but I'm going to say you should be monitoring it as a trend. Was it 30% at the beginning of the year relative to worship attendance? And then was it 50% at the end of the year? That would be good. The trend would be positive. More people relative to your worship attendance or membership are involved in ministry. That is a trend that I would watch, because here's what's going to happen. The better that number gets, the more your back door is going to close. Your assimilation rate is going to be better. Same thing with number 3, small group attendance trends. Many of you come from backgrounds of Sunday school churches where you used to keep those records just in a way with precision. Many of us have gotten away from it. And particularly when we look at non-Sunday school environments, small group, community group, life groups, whatever the name may be, are you monitoring not only the weekly attendance, but are you monitoring the trends? That's going to tell you a lot about the sticky factor of the church, or potentially the evangelistic factor of the church. You need to be watching your attendance trends. Again, we could get into what is a good number. I am more interested at this point as you watching those numbers. Did you have 60 people involved in your groups last year, but now you got 80 involved? That would be a good trend. Did you have 300 involved last year, but 250 this year? That would be a bad trend. Watch those trends. They will tell you a lot about the church. 2 types of financial: budget giving and total giving. Let's look at total giving. Total giving trends means how much money is coming in for everything that comes into the church. Missions, building, budget, you get the picture. What are the trends? How much per week? How much per month? How much per year? The 5th one, budget giving trends, is how much is going to undesignated causes. How much is going to non-building, non-mission. That is what keeps the ministries of the church going. That is what pays the bills. That is what does the work of missions in the church. How much is going toward budget? Those are 2 things that you should be watching. Then a 6th one is weekly per capita giving. That one is a little more challenging. So what is weekly per capita giving? Weekly per capita giving can be calculated this way: how much is given toward the budget or total giving divided by the attendance each week. For example, it may be $30 per person attending. That would include children. That would include all adults. $30 is the national average, but I wouldn't use that as your barometer, as your comparison metric, because you may be in an affluent area, you may be in an impoverished area. You really have to know what your community family income is to make a judgment on that. But watch those numbers. How much is each person giving on the average per week? And like I said, $30 a week is the average. So what does that mean? That means a family of 4, mom, dad, 2 kids, on the average give about $120 a week. That would be on the average. So watch those numbers. Watch them carefully, because they're going to give you an indication of, are people giving more sacrificially? Are they giving with more enthusiasm? Or is it beginning to wane? So I have 3 giving ones. Total giving trends, how much is given to the total, not only budget, but to missions, to buildings and other designated causes. How much is given just to the budget, to undesignated causes? What are the trends there? And then weekly per capita giving. Okay, you made it through. You can bring some oxygen into the system. A lot of numbers there. Perhaps you need to go back and watch this video again. Maybe it'll be helpful just to get the numbers a little bit more clear, greater clarity, because there were a lot of them. But go back and look at this and then ask, which of these do we really need to be looking at in our church? For example, the first three of these will give you an indication. The first one particularly of your outward focus. Number 2 and 3, ministry involvement, small group attendance, will give you an idea of your sticky factor. Are people going to stay? And then 4, 5, and 6 are going to be early warning indicators. If your numbers on giving are going down, that's an indication that other things will begin to go down as well. If your numbers are going up, just the opposite. Okay, enough numbers. You've made it through this one. Thank you for doing this. And also thank you, Costco and Associates. I really appreciate Tim Songster and his folks at Costco. They're just the best there is in ministry business when it comes to building facilities, church facilities, remodeling facilities, or anything related to facilities. You can find them at churchdesign.com. That's churchdesign.com. And thank you each and every week for being with us at the Rainer Report. It's been my joy to share with you, and I look forward to seeing you next week.